Welcome to End of Life University on YouTube. I'm your host, Dr. Karen Wyatt, and today I'll be sharing with you a very heartfelt conversation I had with Hallie Twomey. Hallie is a grieving mother, grieving the suicide death of her son, but she's also one of the subjects of the documentary film Scattering CJ, which tells the story of how she asked on Facebook if anyone who was traveling anywhere would be willing to help her scatter her son's ashes. And subsequently, CJ's ashes have been scattered all around the world. And it's quite an amazing story. And we'll be talking about the film and why this film would be a particularly good film to utilize for a screening in your community and a discussion group. So it's a tough conversation to have, but beautiful and uplifting in the end. So I think you'll enjoy it. So stay tuned for that. Make sure that you have subscribed to this channel using the button down below. Also, subscribe and leave a rating and review for the podcast wherever you happen to listen. And go to eoluniversity.com/support. And there you'll find 3 different ways you can make a contribution to help keep this YouTube channel and the podcast on the air. Thank you in advance if you choose to do that. Today, I'm very happy to welcome my special guest, Hallie Twomey. And this is actually our second time recording this interview because we had a technological problem the first time. So Hallie's been wonderful to hang in there and return again for another interview. But Hallie is a grieving mother on a mission. Following the suicide of her elder son and Air Force recruit CJ Twomey, Hallie set out to make something positive evolve from such horrific tragedy. Hallie used Facebook and the power of social media to send her son on one last journey. What started as a simple request for people to scatter her son's ashes across the world has since turned into a social phenomenon, one with the ability to save lives offline as well as drawing together a community online that has congregated in solidarity and empathy. Hallie has worked tirelessly to ensure that her son did not die in vain. She continues to share CJ's story as a way to spark conversations about mental health and remove the stigma associated with suicide. Hallie hopes the documentary Scattering CJ will amplify her efforts, and we'll be talking all about that today. And you can learn more about Scattering CJ at the website scatteringcjfilm.com. So Hallie, welcome back again, and thank you for being here today.
My pleasure. And I'm sorry that the first one didn't take, but it's a great opportunity for you and I to connect again. So I appreciate being here.
Yes, definitely. And I wanted to say from throughout the whole time now that I've been able to know you, I've been really impressed with your work. And, as your bio said, tirelessly working to remove the stigma associated with suicide because I've had a suicide death in my family and I know that so well. And I know how it was my dad's death really pushed me into a place of isolation in a way. I had a really hard time sharing it or talking about it and reaching out for any support. And so you have done that so beautifully. And I really admire that because I know how hard it is.
Yeah, it's as you said, it's you feel so alone, and the statistics prove that we are not alone. There are so many mothers, family members that have loved ones that have taken their lives, and but it's a very isolative club to belong to. You know, there's people out there, but for me, I'm not sure where I would be today if I wasn't able to kind of do what I've done to talk and to share because I think, I say it's hell on earth what I've gone through and what we've gone through, but it would be so much worse if I wasn't able to talk. And part of the film and the reason we've done what we've done is because communication and open communication and destigmatizing the topic, raising awareness of mental health and suicide prevention, it's so important. And if we don't talk, nothing's going to change. And I certainly don't think that we're going to end suicide, but I do know through my experiences for the last, which seems unbelievable, 15 years, we've changed the lives. We've saved some people because we've been able to let them know there's somebody out there that cares and that there's avenues to take other than following in my son's footsteps. So it's an honor to do this, but I hate that I have a reason to do it.
Yes, yes. And this all started one day when you decided to put a post on Facebook. So I'm just curious at what motivated you to do that? What was going through your mind that day?
It's an excellent question. I really don't remember the specifics, but I do know that when you have your 20-year-old son take his life, you've most likely not ever had conversations with them about what would happen if the worst happened. And I just knew that CJ he loved life, which is why it's really extra sad that he did what he did. But he loved travel and he loved being in the Air Force and he loved adventure. And I just saw his urn one day. We had him cremated and he sat in his urn, his ashes, right when you walked in our front door. And I looked at it one day and I just thought this can't really be the end. And I went to my husband, John, and our only other child, Connor, and I said, just as I spontaneously said, what would you think if I asked a few people if they would consider taking some of CJ's ashes on a journey, or maybe when they went on vacation or a travel, because he loved to travel. And I thought, he's never going to get to see the world. So they said yes. And I joke that I think they think they probably had to say yes, because when I tend to get an idea in my mind, I tend to go forward. But they gave me their blessing. And so I just put a really simple post up on Facebook. And I remember thinking that if, 25 or 50 people took me up on my request, it would be pretty fantastic. And I just said, if you're going someplace that you think would be a special place or just anywhere that maybe CJ didn't have a chance to get to in his too short life, I would give them if they'd agree, I'd send them a little bit of his ashes and ask them if they'd scatter his ashes there and then simply take a single picture of just the location so that I could kind of live through that experience with them. And I posted it and really quickly through the power of social media, which I know social media gets all kinds of negative, um, there's a lot of negativity around it, but for this instance, the Scattering CJ story took off. It went viral very, very quickly. CNN picked it up, and it seemed like overnight we went from 25 to 50 to 500. And today we have had over, I think I counted 25,000 offers
Oh
of
my gosh.
locations, yeah, where to scatter him. And over the last 15 years, we've sent his ashes to people who have just gone so much beyond what we originally asked for, a single picture. They're now including him in family vacations. They're having generational families take part in this. They're using it as an opportunity to talk to their loved ones, their children, um, some of their family members sharing openly with them about their struggles. And CJ is literally all over the planet Earth. He's on all seven continents. He's everywhere. There's probably not a location, and I don't say this sarcastically or exaggerating, but I'm pretty sure there's not really a location on this planet that you could go that CJ's ashes weren't somewhere within a fairly close distance. So it's been fantastic. He's even gone into outer space. We had a company out of Houston, Texas, reach out to us and said that they just really admired the work that we were doing and offered to put his ashes on a rocket that rocketed into outer space. And then his ashes came back down. And interestingly enough, our son Connor, who is now a dad and has grown up kind of in the shadow of all of this, those are the ashes that he really wants to hold on to. So we will always keep some of CJ's ashes, but we are still, even today, even though we're certainly not actively searching like we did back when Scattering CJ first started, we still get requests. And every once in a while, something just speaks to me and we send ashes and wait to see, the next journey. And ultimately, that usually leads to some great conversation. People share their stories, and it's just a continued blessing.
It's truly amazing. I have goosebumps like every time I hear the story. But did you find that a lot of the people who reached out and wanted to take CJ's ashes had been touched by suicide in some way themselves or other types of grief?
I think it's probably, I don't know if I've ever actually thought about the percentage, but I would guess maybe an 80-20. I think 80% of the people have had some reason to really or been intimately connected with the idea of mental illness or suicide. either struggled themselves with depression or had a family member take their lives. I think it's a way. I remember thinking when I first started, why would somebody want to participate in this? It's kind of, really it's sort of a morbid thing to take someone's ashes, but I think it gives people a way to connect and feel like maybe they couldn't help someone that they loved, or it's keeping them involved and sort of gives them a dose of advocacy, making them feel like they're helping somebody else. I think the other 20% is probably a mix of people that thought I was crazy to do this, but were intrigued. And really, all walks of life came out of the woodworks to offer. We've had teenagers offer. We've had families that one particular story, a mom wrote me a letter and said, "You've probably received thousands of offers." And at that point, we had. And she said, "I don't really have anywhere amazing to offer to take your son." Because at that point, we had people taking him to the Great Wall of China and the Eiffel Tower, all of these major locations. And she said, "But I run a daycare out of my backyard." She lived in central United States. She said, "I don't have anything beautiful other than the fact that I can promise you," always starts crying at this point when I talk about this. She said, "I promise you that your son will always be loved and surrounded by smiles
Mm.
and laughter." And she said, I'm sorry if this isn't a good enough place for me to offer." And I remember reaching out to her and saying, "That is a perfect place. Um, I'm so fearful that my son will be forgotten or that he'll only be remembered for that last act. So to know he's out there and in her backyard, surrounded by kids running around, is fantastic." So it's been an amazing mix of people. And I really will never be able to thank them enough.
And I think of those 25,000 people who reached out. Imagine how many more conversations have rippled
Oh,
out from that group of people because they've talked to other people about it. They've shared the story. And they, in a way, they've been emboldened to tell someone, look what I read about, look what I know about. And
absolutely.
just what a powerful movement this has become.
It has. And, I feel like, and I hope that's what the documentary does. Sort of the same thing I felt about in the beginning. I wasn't sure why people would want to participate just in helping us scatter his ashes. When we were contacted by the film company, I couldn't see how they could take such a tragic story and make it something that would be um, something people would find value in. And what I think the movie has done is it doesn't harp on the dark side of suicide. It doesn't stress the real. It's not heavily statistic driven. It's not. It shows the power of community and how through one act you can help somebody. You can spark a conversation. I feel like that film, people walk away and they might have gone in wondering what it's going to be about, but they come out saying, and they've told us like, this is a great opportunity for us to share. They've asked their kids or their loved ones to watch it with them, and just let's have a conversation. Have you ever felt anything that made you think that there was no other option, or know that I'm here, I'm always willing to talk to you. So it's a tool. I don't know that it's, like I said, it's not going to change everybody's outcome, but if you can watch something for 58 minutes that you walk away thinking that is a tragic story, but the way it was told, it's beautifully bittersweet, and it shows the power of community coming together to help one another. That, then they talk about it, they ask somebody else to watch it. That's what we just think it's going to keep giving. It's been something, and I always feel it's really important to say we've gained nothing from this. We never have had raised a single dollar from the film. We got nothing other than knowing that CJ's story has to be bigger than that last action. And the scattering CJ journey has been such a powerful gift to my family, something we didn't know we needed. And so when we agreed to do the film, it was merely and simply, we want to share. We want people to walk away and talk about um, what's going on in their lives, or reach out to somebody that maybe there's somebody in your life who you think is acting a little different or seems a little quieter. Just use it as a tool. So we just continue opportunities like this where we get to share and talk about it, and hopefully, your viewers will go and watch it and find some value in it and think it was worth the time to, spend an hour to learn.
Yes. And the film is so beautifully done. I can't overemphasize that. And because it shows this montage of so many people in the process of scattering the ashes, their photographs, the things they sent you, they interviewed some of the people, families,
Mm,
and and it's a great role modeling in some ways to see families together scattering the ashes and to know those parents were talking to their teenage children about suicide and having conversations and
absolutely.
involving them in a ritual to honor someone who died. And that is just so powerful. And the film brings us into it. We get to be part of it. It's as if we're there on so many of those journeys. We get to see um, really the preciousness and the sweetness and the creativity
Wow.
that people came up with as in their way, in their own way of honoring CJ.
Oh, it's amazing. And we're still, I mean, I have giant Rubbermaid or giant Tupperware buckets of things that people sent us. And the truth is no one needed to do any of that for us, but to know that it became so important to them to actually make, more than just, they went on vacation, they stole a moment, scattered his ashes and took a picture and walked away. They're actually planning and creating memories for their family. We have people still, and it's interesting that you and I are, taping this a second time because I didn't have this part of the story before. In the film, there's a woman named Kelly Vella who lives in Australia, and she became involved. She took her whole family. Her parents are divorced, but their families and all of her siblings, they went and they scattered CJ's ashes as a generational family moment. And they talked about it. And even the little kids had some of CJ's ashes and they released his ashes. And Kelly has become a really important part of our family. The film company actually flew her into for the world premiere and surprised me. But when I say that this has impacted my life, Kelly lives in Australia. I've only met her in person once. It's been over 15 years. Our son Connor just had his first child, and Kelly just sent Connor and his wife Ella and our new grandbaby Cora 10 beautiful Australian children's books and is still a part of our lives. Now, that's because Kelly feels invested in our family now. And I feel like, and I'm going to start crying, um, the connections that I wouldn't have had this support, it's beautiful. And to know that there's a family, multiple people in this family across the world who feel like we're their family and that they know without a doubt they would have loved CJ. And I know CJ would have loved them. It's so powerful. It's the power of community. And, I would give anything to have CJ back here and not have a reason to do any of this. But I am so thankful that his legacy, his story has brought people into my world that have given me and continue to provide me with such support because, quite frankly, 15 years later, I still struggle. You
Mhm.
never get over this. It's not anything you can make sense of. We didn't have a letter. CJ didn't leave any of those things. So you're always left with the questions, the what ifs, the what could you have done. And it's hard. So knowing that I have, without even looking for that, have gained such support and people that believe that our son's story is worth telling is just, I mean, how do you say thank you to that?
Yeah. This is really, I think, how grief is meant to be carried in our society for us humans together as a community of people coming together and all saying, I'll take a few of the ashes, I'll take a
Yeah.
few of the ashes, I'll carry some of this for you and I'll share it with you. And it's like a beautiful metaphor, but it really happened.
Yeah.
People really shared in
It
the whole
takes a village.
process. Yeah.
It sure
And
does.
yet, as you said, it doesn't make the grief any easier
Mm,
to bear. It doesn't take the grief away because as you said, it will always be there.
mhm,
But the idea that you're so supported and there's a foundation, there's like a safety net around
mhm.
you of all these loving hearts and all these people who care. And in fact, this whole community is really there for everyone because everyone in that group will also experience their own
Oh,
grief too.
absolutely.
And they've
And
already go ahead.
I was going to say the Scattering CJ Facebook page has people talking to each other on there, and offering their phone numbers and that connectivity beyond our family. So that's absolutely very true. That it's just they will come into different phases of journeys in their lifetime where things happen that maybe they weren't experiencing at the time that they found Scattering CJ, and maybe they need more support now. And there's just always somebody on there that just says, I'm here. I might not understand exactly what you're going through, and I definitely don't have probably the exact right words, but I can listen. And listening or offering a shoulder and knowing you have somebody that if you just say, I need someone to listen to me, knowing that's out there is, I mean, that's everything.
Yes. And all those people who participated, they now know the power of a ritual, like doing a ritual like scattering the ashes. They've already learned that as a tool that they will have when they have
Right.
losses in the future, to know that made a difference. That was really special and really important. And so that's knowledge that not everyone knows that or sees that.
Yeah.
And those people are really blessed, I think, by having a chance to experience it.
We've had a lot of families reach out to me that weren't selected, and I always feel bad, and I've had to struggled over the years to try to explain that we were offered received so many offers that we certainly couldn't pick everybody, and I would have if I could have. But we've had people that said, I wasn't able to participate in Scattering CJ, but this is something that we're going to do. Recently my loved one passed away, and asked for um, just the how I did that, the kind of the logistics of it, but certainly shared with me that it seemed meaningful, and it gave them, they thought it would give their whole family a way to come together and to talk about what happened. And not always, certainly not always about suicide, just losing a loved one, and how you can do this act and share your grief. So it will probably always continue into, perpetuity, that this is an idea out there, certainly with social media and the fact that the documentary exists. Who knows, 10 years from now, somebody might stumble on this and help them, plan for the future, or just want them to be available to somebody to speak to them, or offer, to be a shoulder. So I feel like it's taken on a life of its own. It's certainly always going to be something that matters in my life, and I will always find opportunities to keep sharing. It's only 58 minutes, and I say that a lot because I want people to know it's not something you have to commit your whole, busy days to, and even the fact that different ages can walk away. It isn't graphic in nature, so it's appropriate for all ages if you want to. I've had parents ask me, and I've had kids as young as 8, their parents say, do you think it's okay? And they watch it first and they say they really do think so. We even pull in the sort of younger group, Lincoln Park, who unfortunately their lead singer, Chester Bennington, took his life. They were given a rough cut of the film, and they agreed and believed in it and saw the value that they allowed us to use their song "One More Light" in the film. And
Mm.
I remember thinking, even if Lincoln Park fans stumble on it just for the song, I'm okay with that, because then maybe they'll find some value in the film. So it's been a journey. Certainly, I'm still amazed at the what it's become, where it's gone. I'm proud of it. It's still a struggle though, because even as I'm sitting here now, I get that heaviness because, gosh, I just wish I had no reason. Especially now with our youngest son having a baby, I am really aware of, Uncle CJ is not going to be there to know his niece, but this is part of CJ's legacy. And although I can't speak for him because he's not here, I do think that my son loved people. He loved being the center of attention. And I'm pretty sure, as convoluted as that sounds, because if he was here, this wouldn't have happened. But I bet you, if he could, he'd think it was pretty cool that all these people have found a power in helping him and being a part of his story. And lots of people have pointed out he was handsome, and he was just so full of life.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're proud of it. It's been a long journey coming and getting here, but every day I believe we did the right thing in starting the Scattering CJ journey and agreed to the film, because it leads me to opportunities like this and connections that I wouldn't have had.
And one thing the film shows a couple of times is maybe this became a ritual for you, because for all these thousands of people, you had to mail ashes to people.
Mm,
So you were dealing with that probably every single day, putting ashes in little
yep.
bags and mailing them off to people. So I imagine that was some sort of a ritual for you in a way.
Oh,
Of,
absolutely. That gave me something, I can only speak for myself, but I needed something to focus on. I needed to have a purpose. I don't think I understood what that purpose was, but I just know that the aloneness, the world closing in on me, that feeling of I will never be okay was closing in on me. We had gone to support groups. John and I had tried to find um, that external support, and we just never kind of had that. We never found what we were looking for. So the reading, the messages and the stories, as overwhelming as that could be, because my gosh, have people gone through a lot and people continue. Life is hard. But it gave
Yeah.
me a purpose. It gave me the ability to reach out to others. And I can't remember if I shared when we talked last time, but probably the most powerful thing that's come from this entire journey is I had a 19 or 20-year-old woman in Florida reach out to me via email through the Scattering CJ page. And she shared a whole bunch about what was going on in her life. And she actually wrote to me to say goodbye because she didn't think that her mother or her father would care. And she was writing
Mm.
as a her last message. And I remember reading it and literally feeling the blood drain because I was reading what really was potentially someone's last correspondence. And I knew nothing other than it came from Florida. I tried to do some really quick detective work on Facebook, and I don't even remember how because it was many years ago, but we somehow found out in a reference of something she posted on her Facebook page, like some area that we sort of whittled it down. And I remember calling a police station in that town and saying, please don't think I'm crazy. I just need to explain to you why I'm reaching out to you. And they got very quiet, and I probably talked, which you can tell I'm a talker. I talked fast and I was very nervous and in tears. And I said, let me just tell you, this is what's happening. This is what she wrote. I don't know much. Here's her name. I had, copied the Facebook page. And they said, I think they took me seriously. I couldn't tell, but they said thank you. And probably 4 days later, I got a phone call back from the police station that said they found her and they were able to, they admitted her to the hospital without her consent, but out of safety for herself. And I can't remember now, I might be making the timeline up, but several weeks later, maybe a month or two later, I got a phone call from her mother.
Mm.
And her mother was crying. And now I'm going to cry. Um, she just said, thank you. She said, my daughter is so very mad at you for doing what you did. But as a mother, thank you for helping. And she is okay to this day. She has gotten the help she needed, and she didn't follow in my son's footsteps. And that's because of Scattering CJ. She reached out. And so even in the days, sometimes I wonder, like, have I really made a difference? There's one person I literally know, you know, we saved a life. And so if that's all I ever did, that's enough. But I just want to continue doing that. I want to make sure people don't follow in my son's footsteps.
And I'm sure there are so many more people who've seen the film, um, who, the idea might have crossed their minds, but they might, from just because the film does a really a good job of portraying the pain of being the survivors left behind after someone dies by suicide, of being very honest about what what happens in the wake
Mhm.
of that suicide. And it doesn't flinch or try to cover up or soft pedal the pain of it. The pain is very real and very evident in the film. And so I feel like that's something that we need to talk about.
Mhm.
And even the fact that, it's heartbreaking. This girl felt her parents wouldn't care,
Mhm.
but, and maybe lots of teens and somehow feel that or wonder that, but to see the depth of caring from people all around the world who
Mhm.
care, there's this huge network of people who love and care. And that's such a
Yeah.
powerful message.
I appreciate that you um, found the power in the honesty. And I think that's the one thing I had to tell the production crew. Spark Media is a fantastic company. They certainly knew what they were doing, but if we couldn't be honest, I couldn't have done this. I'm not everybody's cup of tea in that I will be honest. I am also extremely open on social media when I talk about myself. I right or wrong, doesn't matter. I blame myself for a lot of what happened. CJ and I fought in those last minutes, and I didn't say the things that in hindsight I would have liked to have said. And I'm honest about that. 15 years later, I have a wonderful life. I have a great husband. I obviously have lots of friends and family, and but that's something that I will never get over, and I'm never going to candy coat. Suicide is extremely destructive. It leaves behind the worst wake of pain and what ifs that will haunt you. I will have days where I haven't, I mean, I think of CJ every day, but I don't necessarily think of that day every day. And then I can be in the middle. We just went to Disney World. We live in Florida. And in the middle of Disney World, it's like somebody sucker punched me. And I just had that. Here I am in Disney, but let's think about what happened. It's like my brain is going to forever take a opportunity now and again to remind me of what happened. And so the honesty is that's really who I am. I'm not going to make this seem like it's any better. My life is significantly worse because of what my son chose to do. And I will never make that, you know, make pretend that it is. I have had people say to me over the years, which is so frustrating, but he's in a better place. He's all these things. And I think, I hope you never have to walk in my shoes because the best place for CJ should have and was with his family. And the fact that he couldn't see that is heartbreaking to me. But no one will ever convince me that we're better off or we should be happy that, we're not religious, which is another part of, I envy lots of people who are. Blind faith gives them people the ability to think they're going to see their loved ones again. I don't happen to be one of those people. So for me, life is very concrete, very black and white. But that's my own thing. But I don't know when I think people need to say something to you because they don't want you to hurt. And I respect that. But when you tell somebody that, their child who parents aren't supposed to live up longer than their kids, your children are not supposed to take their life. And then when you witness that happening, which we did, um, nothing's ever going to make it better. So I don't harp on the graphic parts of my life, but I'm going to be honest with you. If you want to have a conversation, I will listen. But if you ask me to tell you really how things are, I'm going to tell you. And sometimes that might be a turnoff for others, but I found for the majority of the last 15 years, I think people respect the fact that I'm not trying to candy coat things and I'm going to use the conversations in this story. And thankfully, Andrea Kalin, who's the producer, she knew how to that fine line between not being so graphic and making sure, excuse me, my earpiece is falling out. She knew how to tell a story. So probably if I was the producer, it might not have been so well received, but I just needed to be honest and open. And I think that's led to part of the reason why people find value in it is we're not trying to BS anyone. This is what happened and why I wish I could undo so much. And I really hope people understand that they may think their family is going to be better off if they choose to leave, but it's just not true.
Mm-hmm. And that it is this honesty of yours that I so admire because this is what we need to have these painful, deep, true conversations with each other, really, as we look at how do we get through this life. And it is hard, as you said, it's tough
Oh,
for so many people and there's a lot to bear, but we need to be able to talk about the pain of it because that's the only way we can share it. That's the only way we can help one
mhm.
another and kind of stand up for each other sometimes on the worst days when what
Mm,
you need is somebody else to reach out a hand and
yeah.
somebody else to say, but I care about you right now in this
Hmm.
moment. And it seems like that's what 25,000 people or more have stood up to say to you. I care about this place where you are. I'm not, I know I can't fix it for you. I can't make it better. I can't change anything. I just want to show you that I care. And I think it's so beautiful.
I had a social media friend who I've never met in person. Her name's Alice. She lives in Atlanta. She said to me years ago, and I'm probably going to massacre the way she said it far more beautifully, but I remember her saying that, my grief is, meaning my grief is like a boulder and it sits on my shoulders. And all of the people around me, all they can offer is to take a small pebble of that and help carry the load. Again, she said it in a much more beautiful and elegant way, but I just remember thinking, I so appreciate that people are offering to do that in whatever way that looks like for them, because thinking it visually, if this boulder's on my shoulders, what if people hadn't helped me? What if people hadn't reached out? That boulder would still be the same enormous size it always would be. And So I feel like if I remember that, and when I have dark days, I try to remember that it's not the same burden it always was. It's still awful, and I still cry a whole bunch. But through the kindness, and that's literally what it is. It's the kindness of others, mostly strangers, that have taken some of our burden and offered their hand to help us on this journey. And then in doing that and watching the film, have reached out to others and said, "Hey, let's look at this. Watch it. You might like it." I mean, there's even a moment I think or two in there where we laugh a little bit. CJ was a character, and I talk about him, but he really was amazing, and people loved him as much as he loved people. And at his funeral, the saddest thing was, so many people came and everyone said he was the one that made us laugh. He was the one that came and helped us. He was the one that when I was down, he would find me and offer to, you know, put an arm around my shoulders. So that's the reason I think inherently I'm doing what I'm doing, because you don't always know. And you need to keep your eyes open. If you're the one that needs that arm around your shoulder, ask for it. And if you're somebody who sees somebody who just might need that, offer, because you just never know the impact you can have. And I certainly don't think I will ever be able to um, get the people who have helped on this journey understand how much they've helped us.
And I wanted to say, meeting you, talking to you, seeing the film, and hearing about CJ, it's actually been really helpful to me because from all the years since my father's suicide, I spent so many years hiding the pain that I was carrying and
Mm.
not feeling really safe to share it with anyone because of the stigma that we talked about,
Yeah.
and that there's a certain shame associated with it, and afraid that people would judge my father or
Mm.
judge me. And I couldn't bear it. That just felt horrible. But seeing your ability to just be honest, who cares what other people think, being honest and putting it out there, it's helped me to actually do more writing and talking after so many years about my own father's death and my own journey of grief, because grief that's stifled and repressed
Yeah.
and held inside, it's really destructive to us. And so
Yeah.
you've done the very best thing you could do with the grief by sharing it and putting it out
Well,
there. That's what
thank you for
I know
saying
now.
that. And I appreciate that. And again, I must say it 50 times every month. I wish I didn't have that. I wish I wasn't able to give you that, but I just know I try really hard all along the last 15 years to not put words, or to speak for anyone else. But I just know I wouldn't be here. I've never actively been suicidal since CJ took his life, but I have known the entire time that my pain really won't end until I'm gone. Um, but I also recognize how much worse life could be right now if I just didn't talk. And again, I recognize I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but I have no regrets. The only regret I have, and I can't undo it, so it's not ever going to be something I can change. But I wish in hindsight I didn't know back then. But when we wrote CJ's obituary, I wish I had written that he took his life, because the stigma, we fed into that. We simply put died unexpectedly. Now, I guarantee you, before everybody heard CJ's story in our local town about what happened, I guarantee you the second they saw the obituary, you see a 20-year-old, it's indicated as died unexpectedly. You don't know, maybe not know the details, but And I wish now that we had said something differently, because that alone, that stigma, and you're right, there's shame. There's such shame in the beginning of this for me. Like, well, I don't want people to think less than of CJ.
Hmm.
I don't want him to be remembered for that last action or the last act, but I don't, is there shame in the fact that if that's what he really thought, if he was hurting so much? I mean, I don't know. I want no one else to follow in my son's footsteps, but I also grieve for those that think there's no other way out.
Hmm.
But I just wish, that's my true one regret. I've talked to John about that. I don't think we could have in that moment. I mean, you're asked to write an obituary right after it happens. I don't even know how we got through the first year, honestly, but I have shared that with people, not in telling them that if they choose to say it died unexpectedly, there's nothing wrong with that. But it is one thing I know concretely that if I had done differently, might not have fed into that stigma. We can't hide it. There isn't any shame in what somebody chooses to do. It's a part of life. I wish it wouldn't be, and I work really hard to make sure people know there's other options. But um, conversations and communication and just being open, good, bad, and ugly, it makes a difference. It has to.
It will help all of us because the same shame that surrounds a death from suicide surrounds needing mental health help.
Sure.
It's the same shame. It's why people can't tell other people what they're really feeling inside or thinking, because we're all afraid of being judged by someone else, or and
Totally.
and that's what we have to get rid of. We have to get rid of any of that stigma and just be able to care about one another
Hmm.
and talk openly. And even though it hurts, I mean, it hurts to have the conversation that we're having right now
Yeah.
too, still, but it's so important and so powerful.
Yeah. I tell everybody, and it's that cliche saying, it's everywhere. It's okay not to be okay. There's no, it's not embarrassing to say that I'm struggling. Um, I mean, life in general, we've said that already. It's very hard, politically. People don't agree with each other nowadays. Things are becoming more expensive. Everything's harder. The struggle is real. And then on top of that, if you feel like you actually aren't doing well, to be able to not be able to openly or feel like you can't openly say, I need help, I'm feeling a certain way, that's just so sad. We need to be less judgmental. We need to be more open to the fact that if there's something that can make life easier for you and it happens to come in the form of therapy or a medication or whatever it is, that's okay. That's you actually having the courage to stand up and say, I need some help. Um, that to me is sort of the end game. I don't know if we'll get there, but I certainly think the film and things like this um, are ways of making that happen.
And it is really interesting. You mentioned the how polarized society is now and the divisions
Mhm.
between people, but for the 25,000 people that responded that wanted to help scatter
Mhm.
CJ's ashes, I'm sure you probably don't know anything about what their beliefs
No,
are or their politics or any of that. There
no.
aren't really
I
any,
never once, I
there
never
are,
once said, are you a Democrat? Are you a Republican? Are you
are-
religious? No.
there aren't any, those divisions are not real when it
Yeah,
comes to the heart. And when we remember that that is actually where we're connected. All these external labels don't even matter. It's that we're connected
that's so true. It's just a
through,
pure offer of kindness. And all the, you know, labels and the things that we wear in our daily lives about what we believe in and what we don't, nobody cared, or at least nobody said to me. I did have people that, took CJ's ashes, said they were a Buddhist and went to a Buddhist temple. I, none of those things mattered to me. It was that you felt strong enough to reach out to me and say, this is important to you. This is why. Um, as we got more and more offers, we asked people to really tell us why the particular location meant something to me. And that's where these beautiful stories would come out of. I'm going on a personal mission to sort of find myself, and I feel like having CJ's ashes along with me would help me. I had a woman, I think to this day actually, still carries CJ's ashes in her. She's an EMT, and she's out saving people every day of her
mm,
life. And she has his ashes in the visor above, where she drives the ambulance. And she's said he's her ride along. And that's a different kind of scattering,
wow.
different. He didn't end up in one place, but when she asked me if she could do that, I said, absolutely. I can't think of if he's giving you the strength and the courage to do your job every day, that's an amazing part of scattering him. And she did promise that someday, if and when that ends, she will find somebody somewhere to put CJ's ashes for his final resting space, and she'd let me know. And I trust that she'll do that. And but in the meantime, CJ's, well, part of my son is literally there helping people on a daily basis. So his legacy is more than, just a story. He's literally doing something.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
it's pretty amazing. And there's just so many stories like that. People have just been fantastic and so kind. And, we still have some ashes. And I probably think as long as I'm able to do it, as I get an occasional offer, that just speaks to me. We'll probably continue doing it. I mean, um, the journey's pretty amazing, and those human connections when people reach out to me and feel passionately enough to say, usually the emails now start with, I don't know if you're still doing this. I just found his page, but here's what I'd like to do. Um, Even that, just that reaching out thing is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I want so a lot people are still coming because of that Facebook page. They're still seeing it
Yeah,
there.
people
Wow.
find it, or they somehow, find the documentary. Somebody told them to watch it, and then People Magazine did a really beautiful, I think it was like a 4-page spread on the story when it went viral. And I had somebody, honestly, I'm not just making this up, 3 or 4 weeks ago, emailed me and said, I just read the People Magazine, which I think now is probably 2 or 3 years old, in a doctor's office, because doctor's offices never get rid of
Yeah,
their
that's right. They
magazine.
never throw those away.
And they reached out to me and just said, I looked at the page after and I found the documentary, which, I mean, think of that. That's a old tattered magazine years
Yeah.
later making a difference. So I don't know how people are going to continue to find it in the future. I certainly, with September coming up being Suicide Prevention Month, and there's Mental Health Awareness Month, I will talk about it as much as I can in every opportunity. I probably once in a while on my Facebook page just say, have you watched it? If you haven't, would you consider? Or if you've watched it, maybe it's time to watch it again. Um, I'll be there always, poking and prodding people. But I think the biggest gift to me is when somebody says, I watched it and I actually told X, Y, and Z to watch it as well. It really does take a village to get it out there. You can buy it on Amazon now, you can watch it on pbs.org, you can do all kinds of things, but to tell someone else to watch it, therein lies the beauty and the generosity, because you're sharing the story. You're asking somebody else to participate and to see if they find value. And I always tell people, if you watch it and you forget nothing from it, that's okay too. But if you watch it and you find value in it, I'd love for you to tell somebody else to watch it.
And you mentioned before that it's 58 minutes long, which really is a
Mm-hmm.
perfect length because it's perfect for watching the film together and then having a discussion group afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would be a great offering as for a community film night and discussion night, and especially during Suicide Awareness Month, but anytime, at any
Oh,
time
absolutely.
whatsoever.
Yeah,
There's
and
no,
I always tell people that I'm in Florida, and certainly, traveling may not be the easiest thing in the world, but I'm always that person who, if a group wants to show it and then Zoom me in like this or Teams me in or something, I'm happy to talk to people. I think the best part of me being involved in this is that you can tell it's real. There's nothing, this is a sincere reflection of my life and our journey and CJ's story. And if I can help somebody get the film shown by offering to be there, I am happy to take time out of my life. Um, Another thing that's happened since you and I first filmed, I manage a family medicine residency program for doctors that are in their 3-year residency to become board certified. And so we have interns, we have first, second, and third years, and we have a psychologist who runs our behavioral health curriculum, and she is showing the film this coming Thursday during their noon conference hour. And we've extended the session by a half an hour just for what you said. We're going to show the film, and then I'll be there to answer any questions. The reality is they're family medicine doctors. That's what they're training to become. And this isn't going to teach them anything that they don't already know from a medical standpoint, but it's going to put it on their radar. It's just hopefully going to make them just be a little bit more aware, keep their eyes and ears open a little bit more, be attentive and on the lookout for the signs. And so that's just happening next Thursday. And yes, it's where I work, but that's just amazing. And I'm so honored that they asked to do it. And I'm just going to keep finding opportunities like that to share the story.
oh, you can't imagine how that makes my heart sing because, as a family medicine, that's how I was trained, a family medicine doctor in my initial training. And so that is a perfect audience for the film and a
I agree.
much needed
I don't know if
education.
I'm not sure if they all know about CJ's story. I certainly have pictures of CJ all over my office, and I've been there for 8 years, so lots of people do know. But the great thing about a residency is every year new doctors come in,
Yeah.
and so it's I don't know if our faculty psychologist hopes to do this every year, but it's a fresh audience every year to show. So I just think it's such an honor that she found value. You know, she's a professional, you're a professional. When people say that they find value in it, that says something. It's just not a gratuitous film that, you know, it's something that people feel is worth watching. And as long as that's the case, I'll probably keep talking anyway. It's wonderful to hear that people, professionals think that it's worth seeing.
Well, the story itself is amazing and very heart touching, but the film is magnificent. I mean, they honestly did such a good job
I
of
know
putting that
she's a
film together. I can't
talented.
imagine anything better, and that's why yes, listen to our conversation. You hear about what's in the film, you hear us talking about it, which is wonderful, but you have to see the film. You just have to see how well it's told and how it's put together, and it
I
really
agree.
is beautiful.
I'm biased, but Andrea is just a talented producer. And when they asked us, I remember, um, just as a quick little story, Andrea and her team emailed me at the time. We were receiving thousands and thousands of emails, and I wasn't able to keep up with them all at that time. And I do not to this day know why I opened hers. But she said, I just want to have a conversation with you. So we Zoomed and talked. And John and I almost instantly knew that if we were going to agree to this, she was the person and her team were the people to tell the story, just not knowing how it would come out. But I think she knew what she wanted to do. I think they had done such exhaustive research. They picked the right people, we call them scatterers, the people that participated. And
Mhm.
you've seen the film, the people she chose are they have beautiful stories and beautiful reasons why they were involved. And gosh, I mean, anyone that walks away, and I'm not saying you have to cry when you watch the film, but if something doesn't touch you in there for one reason or another, um, I don't know. It's just, I see it. I probably watched 100+ times and I cry every time. I see something new and appreciate it more every time.
And how long did it take them to film this?
Ugh, 5 years.
5 years. I mean, that's dedication.
Yeah,
That's
that's
amazing.
the only part. And my husband thinks he cringes when I say this, and I certainly don't mean we're like the Kardashians. But when you watch reality TV and they have cameras in their face all the time and they just go about their daily lives, it looks so easy. Well, when you're just a normal person and a film crew shows up at your house weekend after weekend after weekend and just says, just do your thing, it's the most awkward. It's just, and on top of it being a very uncomfortable, sad topic,
Yes.
I could never see how they would make this work. So when they flew down here to Florida, we had moved already, and they came down and showed us. At that point, it was a mostly done cut of the film. I just remember thinking, first of all, crying nonstop, but she is talented. She took this extremely tragic, really horrifying story and made it something. And I always use the term, it's just been what's stuck, beautifully bittersweet. It's sad. It's a sad topic, but it's a beautiful story. And she is unbelievably talented in her ability to make it so that you're not walking away regretting and finding it as useless. You actually walk away and think, that was so heartwarming and fulfilling that I'm going to tell somebody else. So yeah, kudos to Andrea. We're still connected with her. We love her. Um, but
And
yes, talented. It takes a talented film producer to tell a story like this.
yeah, and actually, you walk away feeling like that changed my life.
Well,
Watching that film for 1 hour, that changed something in me.
that's amazing. I mean, yeah, it certainly did for me, but I will never not appreciate hearing that from somebody else because that's what we hoped for. But again, it's our story, and how would we really know? I think everybody should, and I always hesitate to say, I don't want you to love it because that seems weird to say that, but I want you to find value and for you to say it changed your life. You know, that's that's powerful.
Yeah. Well, I had this memory come back to me a long, long ago. I had some sort of dream where I was helping make this gigantic quilt that was going to be big enough to wrap around the entire world. I don't know what the
Wow.
dream was about, but I just realized, like, wow, CJ's ashes have created that quilt in a sense because literally they're all over the entire world. CJ's legacy is this gigantic grief quilt that I might have imagined, and That's a
It's a
really
pretty
beautiful
impressive
picture
visual. It
in my
certainly is.
mind. Yeah.
And he had an ego the size of the world. So it's kind of just, it makes me chuckle. But, to know he's everywhere that he didn't have the opportunity to see, and knowing that he touched so many people along that path to get to all those places. I just circling back to the story I said earlier, just knowing every day there's a daycare full of kids running around and keeping him company. There's another gentleman who created an entire rock garden and actually had a rock engraved with, gosh, I used to know but it literally says, like, herein lies CJ Toomey. This is his memory garden. And every spring when it blooms, he sends me a picture. And
Wow.
there's that rock. And so every single year, my fear, even if it was just him, of my son being forgotten, he's not. I get this picture. Or I get people that are going back now. It's been so long that they're going back to where they scattered CJ's ashes and saying, we went and said hello, and we thought of him. And so that fear of him being forgotten, um, I think I need to let that go because so many people, so many people that didn't know him in life know him in death and as part of his story. And I talk to people now like Kelly from Australia, who you'd think she knew him the way she talks about him, and it's beautiful. So people can laugh about the way they think he would have been, or um, just in his honor, for her to reach out and send our son and our new granddaughter a gift. It's just, I don't know. I smile a lot. I wish it was a better reason to feel this way, but it's been a journey, and I think it will probably always be part of my future.
Yeah.
And um, I will just keep sharing his story and the Scattering CJ film as much as I can, and hope that there's somebody out there that hears it, reads it, sees it, that makes a different decision.
Well, it is really interesting that so many of these people have embraced CJ and they only know CJ through you, but there's something
Mhm.
about the way that you tell the story with such an honesty and put it forward. It seems like TJ is there. TJ exists in your words and in the love that you send out
No, thank you
via
for
your
that.
love
I hope
for
so.
CJ. But
I super, that's what my my heart of hearts, I think about that all the time. I just want people to know him, to know that he was so much more than what happened, and that he he needs to be his legacy needs to be that he's helping change others from following in his footsteps. So um, I hope we're doing that. I hope we get to continue trying to do that for
yes,
as long as we can.
I hope you always know how much good this is doing. Hope you always get that feedback from people.
I do too.
I
But I'd
wanted
probably still talk if not. But yes, I hope so too.
I wanted to ask if someone I mentioned the website
Hmm.
scatteringcjfilm.com, and if
Yep.
people go there, it seems like I recall there's some resources on that
Oh,
page for people who
absolutely.
wanted to have a film showing of how
Yep.
to do it. And
Actually, it's a really thorough, very well done. No surprise, because the production crew is so amazing, that they wouldn't have a great website, but it breaks it down into how they can bring it into universities, military bases, elementary schools, high schools, community groups. There's all kinds of ways for people to bring the film to be shown. There's resources for talk sessions after, questions that it's a great resource. I strongly encourage people, either look at it before or look at it after you see the film. Um, they did they just made it amazing. There's also, and I always plug for them, because I'm 99.9% sure. I'm actually probably 100% sure the company lost money on this film. This isn't you sell it to Amazon and make millions of dollars film. So Spark Media is always does things that they are socially aware. They try to make films. So there's a few items on the Scattering CJ page. You can get a T-shirt that says Scattering CJ. All of that money goes to the production team to help them continue to tell stories like CJ's. So, but it's a helpful resource to use. It will help them figure out. Anyone that just wants to watch it individually can go It's still on pbs.org. If you just go online and type in Scattering CJ, you can watch it for free. But if you'd like to bring it to a bigger audience, there's certainly ways to do that. And like I said, anybody can reach out to me through the website. I also have my Facebook page. But if they want me to Zoom in or Teams in to participate completely for free, just because it's that important to me, I am more than happy to help, run something. I always say I'm not a professional. My words come sincerely from living this experience. I don't know what I don't know, and I will never pretend to tell you anything that's just not from my own experience. But I can be there to share my son's story and help people understand that the what's left behind is really not pretty, and do everything I can to help prevent others from doing this. So lots of ways if people want to get involved, but I'm always willing to help where I can.
Well, thank you so much for that. And you are making a really big difference. The film is, the whole story is, the Facebook page. And so I'm really honored to just have a chance to help promote it and hopefully get lots and lots of people to watch it and talk about it.
I appreciate it more than you can possibly imagine. And it was not the worst thing to have to do this twice at all. So,
No, I've really enjoyed talking with you, and I thought, wow, I learned a lot of new things that were, well,
well, it's
life
always
keeps going
changing. So,
on,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
it
life
certainly
keeps
does. And
changing. So,
yeah, so I think I said this to you last time. I look forward to having other opportunities to connect with you in the future. And thank you for what you're doing, because it is through opportunities like this that new people will find the film. Your audience will maybe learn about it and may not have. So I really appreciate that. And I don't take this opportunity for granted. So thank you.
thank you so much. Thanks for coming back again, Hallie.
My pleasure.